The General Hospital recap for Monday, June 30th, shows that several masked individuals soaked Christina Corinthos Davis Tavern in gasoline before firebombing it. There was a lot of drama on Monday's episode of General Hospital, so let's go over what happened. After leading Natalia Ramirez outside the church, Sonny Corinthos insisted she couldn't be there. Natalia said that Sonny was supposed to be on the plane with her, so they could begin their new life in Belize. Sonny apologized for the confusion, but he made it plain that his life continued in Port Charles. Natalia argued that she didn't have any family or friends to accompany the house and money he provided for her. But Sonny had his thug, Paul, pull her away for her trip. Paul waited outside Natalia's suite since she said she needed to shower and finish packing. Natalia was definitely in crisis mode, as she kept taking medicines and grabbing for her alcohol bottle. Lucas Jones took Carly Spencer's kitchen and asked Marco Rios for help before they ate together. Natalia eventually began texting word salad to Marco, who said she always sent him guilty messages in gibberish when she was inebriated. Lucas noted that since Natalia was supposed to be leaving town and was suddenly reaching out, this could be Marco's only chance to reach back. Marco texted saying he was on his way, but Natalia passed out on the couch from all the medications and alcohol. Back at the chapel, there were many doubts concerning Natalia, but Daisy Celeste's christening went ahead as Sasha Gilmore Corbin, Michael Corinthos, and all of her loved ones attended. Harrison Chase then moved aside to provide updates to ADA Justine Turner over the phone. When Chase revealed that Natalia attended the christening and spoke with Sonny, Brooke Lynn Quartermain approached him and demanded explanations. Chase, on the other hand, was unable to go into detail since he needed to keep his marriage apart from his business life. In Anna Devane's office, ADA Turner questioned if Sonny was truly outwitting the cops, or if Anna was simply looking the other way. Anna pushed on their collaboration and conveyed her displeasure with Turner's decision to keep her in the dark about her current inquiry. Jordan Ashford rushed out of Curtis Ashford's office after apologizing for a heated moment with Portia Robinson. Curtis instantly realized that Portia had set Jordan up to observe that, which Portia verified. Portia insisted Jordan wanted Curtis back, and needed to know it wasn't going to happen. Although Portia accused Jordan of taking advantage of their marriage's fragility, Curtis saw Portia as the manipulator. Portia was still plotting and doing things to drive them apart, according to Curtis. After Portia mentioned that Jordan had also lied, Curtis pointed out that she lied about her job. That was different from when Portia misled him about Trina Robinson's paternity and the blackmail scandal. Jordan ultimately made her way to Anna's office, where she discussed Portia's setup and the events she witnessed. Jordan didn't intend to damage Curtis' marriage, but she warned that Portia's plots would do so. Jordan said Curtis needed to move on since she did not believe he could repair his relationship with Portia. That made Anna wonder what Jordan needed for herself. Portia wasn't surprised that Jordan called Curtis' phone. As it continued to ring, Portia informed Curtis that she would be fighting for his marriage and questioned what he would do. When Anna was alone again, ADA Turner arrived and encouraged her to send an APB out on Natalia, who was set to escape Port Charles and could be their best shot at catching Sonny. Daisy's christening was followed by a small reception at the Quartermain mansion. Sasha let Jason Morgan hold the baby and asked whether Daisy might call him Uncle Jason, but Jason replied it was all right. Christina received a phone call that her manager had to cancel, so she left the gathering early to open Charlie's pub. Before Christina arrived, some masked men doused Charlie's pub with gasoline. Just as Christina noticed the gasoline, someone smashed the window and firebombed the building, causing the flames to spread quickly. General Hospital spoilers state Christina will need to find a way out of this dangerous situation, so stay tuned. As is customary at Christina's bar, the night began with music and laughter. The mood inside Charlie's was warm, vibrant, and full of energy. Christina Corinthos Davis had a good few weeks. After months of struggling to establish herself, not just as a bar owner, but as someone who could stand on her own outside of her strong family's shadow, things were finally falling into place. The new menu was warmly accepted, and the recent makeover added a touch of luxury and comfort. Most significantly, the staff and customers were pleased. Christina finally felt in control, as if she had created something completely hers. However, in Port Charles, peace is only fleeting. It occurred immediately after closure time. The last of the customers had left, and Christina was wiping down the bar, singing to herself. Trish, her assistant manager, was in the rear reviewing the inventory for the upcoming week. They had just spoken about presenting a local musician next Friday night. The place regained momentum. Christina smiled at herself, proud and calm in a manner she hadn't felt in a long time. Then the back door creaked. At first, she assumed it was Trish returning from the stockroom, but the footsteps were too heavy and deliberate. She looked up and froze. Two males entered the pub wearing black ski masks. They did not speak. One had a big duffel bag, while the other held what appeared to be a metal canister. Christina's mind processed everything slowly, lagging behind the events occurring in front of her. The container was red. Gasoline. She could smell it before she realized. Her breath caught. "Hey!" she shouted, her voice shrill, unsure of what she was attempting to communicate. "What the hell are you doing?" The masked man holding the canister did not respond. Instead, he started pouring gasoline in wide, sluggish arcs across the floor. The other unzipped the duffel and took out another container. It was occurring too quickly. Christina backed up, her pulse hammering, and groped for her cell phone. Before she could press 9, the first masked man pointed directly at her. A warning. Silent and scary. She paused. If she made the wrong move, shocked them, or caused them to panic, she may die before aid arrives. Her instincts, long buried beneath layers of trauma and therapy, resurfaced like a switch. She carefully lowered the phone and raised her hands. "Please," she murmured, straining her voice to be level. "You don't need to do this. Take what you want." But they did not desire money. They didn't even want a conflict. They desired devastation. She watched in terror as they saturated the floor, bar chairs, walls, and even the curtains near the windows. Christina had a fleeting thought of Trish as one of them proceeded into the hallway leading to the stockroom. "Oh my God!" she exclaimed. "Someone's in the back." The masked man paused before throwing a match on the floor without saying anything. The fire started instantly. It spread faster than Christina expected. She yelled Trish's name and raced into the hallway, but the flames were already forcing her away. Heat blasted on her face like a wall. Smoke strangled her, stealing oxygen from her lungs. The masked guys had already vanished, slipping out the rear like ghosts and leaving carnage in their wake. Christina couldn't recall how she got outside. It was instinct, adrenaline, and pure panic. She broke out the front door, stumbling into the street, coughing and weeping and yelling for assistance. Within seconds, flames had consumed half of the structure. Sirens sounded in the distance, but she knew it would be too late. Charlie's house was destroyed by fire in less than 20 minutes. The following few hours were a jumble of lights, sounds, and chaos. Firefighters battled the fire, but they were unable to preserve the building. Medics examined Christina's lungs for smoke inhalation, while officers recorded her account. Her clothes smelled like gasoline and smoke. Her hands trembled, her voice cracked, and she continued to glance around, bewildered, begging for Trish. She didn't realize till later that Trish had escaped out the back emergency exit just in time. A firefighter discovered her collapsed on the alley pavement, barely awake but alive. That announcement was the only thing that saved Christina from fully breaking down. Once the fire was out, the questioning came. Who were these masked men? Why would someone target Charlie's? Christina kept asking herself the same questions as she sat in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a shock blanket, her eyes still red from smoke and her throat hoarse from screaming. Detective Chase arrived just before daybreak. His expression was stern and his stance tight. He sat next her softly, one hand holding a clipboard and the other resting briefly on her shoulder. "Christina," he said gently, "could you tell me everything you remember?" She tried. She informed him about the back door, the gasoline, the warning, and the match. Her voice cracked in spots. There were long pauses, periods when her words wouldn't come, and others when they poured out in terrified streams. Chase listened, did not interrupt, and wrote everything down. Then he posed the question she had been dreading. "Do you believe this was personal?" That hit her in the stomach. She did not want to believe it. But something about the way the masked man pointed at her, deliberately instructing her to remain still, did not feel random. Christina shook her head slowly. "I do not know. I'd like to say no. However, they appeared to be confident in their actions. As if they knew me." Chase nodded, his jaw tightened. "We'll look into every possible angle." Within hours, the fire was declared arson. Traces of accelerator confirmed the presence of gasoline. Surveillance footage from the nearby buildings was obtained. But the disguised men had been cautious. No cameras had captured their faces. No license plate. There are no voice recordings. But what they did have was motivation. Christina's relationship to the Corinthos name arouses unavoidable suspicion. Sonny's reach stretched a sweeping shadow across Port Charles. Had the bar been attacked to convey a message to him? Was it about territory or vengeance? She did not want to bring her father into this. For so long she had attempted to forge her own way. However, this violation pulled her right back into that deadly orbit. She knew Sonny would find out eventually. However, when he arrived at the site hours after the fire was extinguished, his presence made everything feel 10 times heavier. He did not speak at first. Just stood by her, staring at what remained of the bar, charred beams, crumbled walls, burnt brick and ash. The smoke still hung in the air. Christina stood paralyzed, unsure what to say. Finally, Sonny turned to her. His voice quiet but forceful. "Who did this?" She didn't respond. Not because she didn't want to, but because she just didn't know. He took another look at the wreckage before speaking again. "I'll find out." She believed him. Christina spent the following few days with Alexis, who kept a close eye on her daughter. Sam paid frequent visits while Molly, despite their recent strained relationship, checked in several times. Christina was grateful, but she also felt disconnected, as if she were walking through fog. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the match drop. She heard a roar of flames. She smelled gasoline. She repeatedly blamed herself. What if she had secured the rear door better? What if she had called the cops sooner? What if she didn't freeze? But nobody blamed her. Not Sam. Not Alexis. Not Sonny. Not even Trish, who approached with a bandaged arm and a haunted expression in her eyes. They hugged for a long period, but neither said much. There was so much to say. Meanwhile, Sonny conducted his own inquiry. He drew in those who owed him favors and paid quiet visits to folks no one else in law enforcement could reach. He wanted names. If someone had ventured to pursue his daughter, if this had been a message, they had made a grave mistake. Dante, torn between his badge and his blood, tried to stay neutral, but Christina could see the concern in his eyes every time he checked on her. She was family, and this was more than just another arson incident. 3 days after the fire, Alexis received a package at her residence. It contained no return address. Inside was a single photograph of Christina from her dawn of day days, standing near Shiloh and smiling with uncertainty in her eyes. The words "false light must burn" were scribbled across the image in red ink. That changed everything. The package was delivered to the PCPD for analysis. Fingerprints were smudged. No DNA, but the message was clear. Someone had not forgotten Christina's background, and now they intended to punish her for it. The revelation sparked a new wave of terror. Had a fragment of the cult survived? Someone holding a grudge? Someone who saw Christina's bar as a representation of her defiance? Suddenly it all made clear. The fire had not started at random. It had been ceremonial, intentional, vengeful. Chase dived deeper. He discovered former Dawn of Day members who had gone missing following Shiloh's demise. One name jumped out. Micah Stinson, a devoted but silent follower who vanished just before investigators raided the final known cult property. He had ties to explosives and a small criminal record concerning chemical theft. And suddenly the case broke. A tip was received from a petrol station clerk on the outskirts of Port Charles. 2 males clad in black filled many fuel containers late the night of the fire. Their car was registered under a false name, but one of the men paid in cash and temporarily removed his mask. The cashier remembers a noticeable scar below his left eye. This matched Micah Stinson's mugshot. The manhunt was underway. Christina experienced a range of feelings for the first time since the fire, including wrath, sorrow, and relief. She had not dreamed it. The risk had been real. She suddenly had a visage that matched the dread. Micah and another former cult member were eventually apprehended in a rural cabin outside town. Inside, they discovered more photos of Christina, copies of her interviews, magazine pieces about the bar, and pages of cryptic inscriptions about cleansing the unfaithful. It was frightening and obsessive, and it left no doubt that the fire was an act of twisted retribution. Micah was arrested, along with his accomplice. They both refused to talk, despite the overwhelming evidence. The DA committed to pursue the highest penalty, but the harm was already done. Charlie's was gone. A week later, Christina stood alone in front of the rubble. The ashes had cooled. The investigators had cleared the scene. Insurance claims were submitted. However, none of this could undo the trauma. However, something within her refused to shatter. She retrieved a half-burned sign from the rubble, part of the chalkboard menu that had formerly hung behind the bar. She smiled, because she would reconstruct. The fire had consumed wood, masonry, and glass, but not her. Not her spirit. Not her intention. In fact, it had accomplished the reverse. It had kindled something within her. Charlie's would rise again, more powerful than before. And no hooded cowards could ever make her terrified to live her life on her own terms again. Not at Port Charles. Not anywhere. General Hospital spoilers state that Eva LaRue is leaving her role as Natalia Ramirez, and the actress is now speaking out about the failed attempt to rehabilitate her character. SOD confirmed that LaRue's farewell airdate is during the week of June 30th, and interviewed her about the departing process. Eva LaRue was first hired for a guest arc, which later expanded into a longer stay. Unfortunately, Natalia never fully recovered from the show's portrayal of her as a homophobic, dominating mother. Although LaRue admitted that the writers attempted to turn things around, it did not succeed in the end. There was too much damage done, and Natalia's romance with Sonny Corinthos would never have genuine fan support. People just weren't buying it, because they just hated my character so much, LaRue told me. I was so vilified that no matter what the writers did, it just wasn't a solid enough rehabilitation that they were gonna buy me with Sonny. When the program shifted away from Sonny and Natalia as a potential pairing, Eva LaRue knew she was on her way out. The writing was on the wall, so LaRue knew Natalia's time was up. And so when they finally let that idea go, I realized, okay, I'm probably not much longer for this world, said LaRue. Of course, that comment implies that Natalia will die as a result of the medicines and alcohol she has just consumed. Natalia passed out on the sofa on the June 30th episode, and she could be a fatal overdose victim by the time Marco Rios receives updates. Although filming has ended, LaRue expressed gratitude to all of the fans who recognize that characters like Natalia provide drama to the show as a whole. LaRue was also appreciative for her castmates and the opportunity to work with GH executive producer Frank Valentini. It was a wonderful experience for LaRue, even if Natalia's life ended tragically. According to General Hospital spoilers, Natalia's departure will pave the way for even more instability in Port Charles, so keep an eye out for any bad news that may follow. Eva LaRue had arrived in Port Charles full of excitement and high hopes, ready to play Natalia Ramirez with a purpose. As a daytime TV veteran, she understood what it meant to play a character with depth, complexity, and emotion. She'd been cast as a lady with a past strong, protective, complicated, and inextricably linked to a major plotline via her daughter, Blaze, and her budding romance with Christina Corinthos Davis. The writers portrayed Natalia as a conservative, religious mother who struggled to accept her daughter's sexuality, putting her at odds with Christina and creating natural friction with viewers who perceived her as bigoted and pushy. Initially, the character was contentious yet potential. Natalia was more than just a one-dimensional villain. She was portrayed as coming from a family that was unfamiliar with open-minded parenting, formed by generations of rigid cultural conventions. There was optimism that she would mature, soften, and eventually transform into a more caring and understanding mother. Week after week, viewers waited for Natalia's redemption narrative to fully unfold, for the long-awaited moment when love for her daughter overcame her preconceptions. However, the audience's expectations were not met. The show attempted to shift. Scripts began to cast Natalia in a kinder light. She was given scenes that depicted her emotional struggles, moments of sorrow, and clumsy attempts to make amends with Blaze and Christina. Writers interspersed warm sentences with timid gestures of reconciliation. There were even times when she stepped in to provide consolation, attempting to help Blaze throughout media attacks and personal hardships. But that wasn't enough. The audience had not forgotten Natalia's caustic statements and disdainful attitudes from her earlier visits. Her presence continued to be unsettling, and each scene served as a reminder of what she represented. A lingering, unresolved judgment. Behind the scenes, Eva LaRue contributed everything she had. She recognized the importance of the job and focused on Natalia's paradoxes. Eva wanted Natalia to represent actual people, those who damaged their children without always knowing why, and who believed they were protecting them while causing harm. It was a challenge, but one she enjoyed. She hoped that viewers would be patient, that the script would give Natalia enough time and depth to develop, and that fans would witness her progress despite her flaws. However, the recuperation felt unequal. Every inch forward was followed by a scenario that seemed to yank her back 2 steps. Her support seemed conditional. Her apologies were unclear. Her concerns were frequently aimed toward herself rather than her daughter's needs. The fans did not hold back. Natalia's appearance on screen sparked social media activity. Some backed her, claiming that her reluctance and gradual acceptance reflected the true difficulties that many families confront. Others were less forgiving, calling her irredeemable, a caricature of intolerance that didn't fit with the show's developing landscape. The creators carefully monitored the feedback. There was pressure to either conclude the character's progression convincingly or dismiss her totally. Ultimately, a choice was taken. Natalia would leave the canvas, not with scandal or spectacular catastrophe, but with a calm conclusion. A goodbye full of innuendo rather than conflict. Her final moments were shot discreetly, without the pomp that usually precedes a prominent character's exit. One more talk with Blaze, some lingering tension, an embrace that didn't quite feel genuine, and she was gone. Shortly after the episode aired, Eva LaRue broke her quiet. In an emotional yet dignified interview, she thanked the General Hospital cast and crew for their kind welcome. She acknowledged her gratitude for the opportunity to return to the daytime and play such a complex and challenging character. But she did not conceal her displeasure. She admitted that the character had been challenging to play, especially when redemption appeared just out of grasp. Eva had wanted Natalia to get there, to mend her relationship with Blaze, to become a champion rather than a burden. She believed the story was worth telling, but only if it was told in its entirety. I think Natalia had the potential to be someone viewers could eventually root for, Eva told me. People change. Parents evolve. I've seen it for genuine. But the writing must fit the journey. It must demonstrate pain, learning, and humility. It can't just hint at expansion. It needs to go all in. The interview elicited varied reactions among fans. Some complimented Eva's honesty and dedication. Others were relieved that Natalia's chapter had concluded. A few, surprised, voiced remorse, claiming that the show gave up on her too quickly, and that a lengthier narrative would have provided the character with the redemption she was denied. Blaze's personal path continued without Natalia, while Christina's storyline became richer as a result. There were moments when Natalia's absence was acknowledged, Blaze swiping past an unanswered message, Christina providing quiet support during a tough holiday, and both women pondering on what it means to live authentically without parental acceptance. The show did not hide Natalia's long-lasting wound. In private, Eva's departure spurred broader industry discussions about how soap operas handle redemption storylines for difficult characters, particularly those whose initial appearances upset viewers. The task of mending a character without minimizing their suffering is difficult, especially in a format where narratives might shift quickly. Natalia had been penned into a corner, and not even an actor as talented as Eva could pull her out completely. Nonetheless, Eva left on good terms. No bridges were burnt. She applauded her co-stars, particularly Jacqueline Grace Lopez, who played Blaze, and Kate Monsey, whose performance as Christina served to ground the emotional weight of the triangle. They're both phenomenal women, Eva added. They brought so much nuance, and working with them gave me the chance to explore Natalia's layers, even when the dialogue didn't always offer it. Producers issued a brief statement thanking Eva for her services, while leaving the door open for a potential comeback. Port Charles is a living environment. People come and go. You never know when a familiar face will appear again. Natalia's narrative was done for the time being, however. What remained was a case study of potential, both realized and squandered. A figure intended to question, provoke, and eventually soften into something better. A character whose arc reflected the complex realities of many families, caught between tradition and acceptance, control and unconditional affection. Viewers debated her departure for weeks. Some hailed it as a success for progressive narrative, arguing that Blaze and Christina would be better off without a mother who couldn't completely accept their love. Others saw it as a squandered opportunity, a chance to demonstrate healing that was never taken. Some thought that Natalia's departure was part of a bigger shift in the show's tone, with the writers leaning toward more inclusive and uplifting tales. Christina and Blaze, free of Natalia's disapproving shadow, regained confidence in their love. Blaze began speaking out about her experience, how she reconciled celebrity with familial rejection, and how she loves herself without apology. Christina, always fiery and fiercely loyal, stood at her side, anchoring her until the storm passed. Their sequences quickly became fan favorites, romantic, honest, and full of the genuineness that audiences desired. Natalia's presence, even in her absence, aided that progress in an unexpected way. Blaze's failure to properly support her kid forced her to stand taller. Christina was obliged to express her true feelings about love as a result of her judgment. In those new dynamics, Natalia's shadow became less threatening, just a cautionary recollection. Eva LaRue moved rapidly. As a seasoned actress with a long career, she was already in talks for new projects, potentially in primetime or streaming. She uploaded images from her final days on set, including chatting with castmates, hugging staff workers, and taking one more tour around the studio lot. Her captions were devoid of resentment and instead expressed thanks. "Not all stories get a perfect ending," she wrote, "but every story teaches something." As her supporters rallied behind her, they repeated the same message. Eva deserved more. More screen time, more substance, greater payoff. While Natalia Ramirez may have been written off, Eva LaRue remains as admired and respected as ever. Behind the scenes, the writers gathered. Natalia's exit had taught them valuable lessons about timing, audience expectations, and the delicate balance between realism and redemption. Characters can be extremely flawed. However, if they are to be redeemed, it must be earned, not implied. Soap operas thrive on transformation, but only when it feels genuine. For the time being, Port Charles has moved on. New characters have arrived. New storylines took shape. However, for many viewers, the image of Natalia Ramirez, dignified yet distant, attempting to love but too terrified to change, remained in the back of their thoughts. A reminder that not every mother does it correctly. Some bridges remain broken, and that sometimes loving someone requires letting go, even if it hurts. Eva's appearance on General Hospital was brief, but her influence was clear. She stimulated conversations, elicited emotions, and performed a challenging part with grace and intensity. It's unclear whether Natalia Ramirez will ever return, but if she does, supporters will be waiting, hoping that the next time, she will finally make her way to the daughter who has always needed her. According to General Hospital rumors, Jen Sidwell and Sonny Corinthos' feud is going to heat up, with the criminal launching a devastating strike on Port Charles's top crime lord. After all, Sidwell rubbed Sonny the wrong way when he offered to buy his PC crime syndicate and was turned down. Sidwell despises hearing the word no, so he's ready to teach Sonny a hard lesson about why no one ever turns down a proposal from him. The GH preview for the week of June 30th to July 4th focuses on Sidwell and Sonny's rage-fueled conflict. Nevertheless, the final two scenes are horrifying. Fire is hurled through Charlie's pub's window, and Christina Corinthos is seen hovering behind the bar. As the fire catches some gasoline and develops velocity, a footage of Sonny's face flashes across the screen, with Alexis Davis's voice in the background exclaiming, "I'm not going to bury another daughter." Unfortunately, it appears that Christina will be caught in the crossfire of this mob war, which is not good given the young woman's mental state.